Saludos. Thank you for joining us in this episode of Spotlight. This week's Spotlight is about Alvan Colón Lespier, Associate Artistic Director of Pregones Puerto Rican Traveling Theater. I am Jessica Moya, Production Manager and Ensemble Member, and I have worked closely with Alvan on all the productions he has overseen since I joined the company in 2005. As a theater maker, Alvan has written and directed outstanding productions for our theater. But today, we will get to know him in his remarkable role as curator for our Marches Music series, now celebrating its 15th anniversary. Enjoy.
My name is Alvan Colón Lespier, and I'm Puerto Rican. My parents were Puerto Rican. I was born here in the United States and raised in transit between various states and Puerto Rico. I am the Associate Artistic Director, and as such, I wear different hats. I write, I also direct. I'm very proud to be the curator of the Marches Music series that we have at Pregones Theater, PRTT. The idea for Marches Music, curiously enough, came about in a conversation between Desmar Guevara, our musical director, and myself one afternoon here in the lobby. And he was mentioning, we know so many musicians and we have the space. Why don't we arrange for a series of concerts? And I was very amenable to that. First, because I like music. Secondly, because music has been an integral part of all our work throughout the years. A series of music here at the theater was like a logical step. So I proposed it to the rest of the team, and we all agreed, and we started. When we started Marches Music here in Pregones, we wanted to provide an enriching experience for both artists and audiences. How I go about selecting the musicians that will participate, what are the criteria that I utilize? Well, first, I prefer to have listened to the artists beforehand. Of course, some I cannot because they are not here. They are abroad or in another state, but I would listen to recordings. So that's one thing. And criteria would be that it is of my liking. And I am very fortunate that my colleagues trust me, and trust my taste. So I propose a series of artists and they say, okay, let's go ahead. Second, some artists are recommended to me by other members of the company, and I will do the due diligence, I will do the research, I will listen, and I will bring them on. The curatorial vision has remained, in principle, constant, and that is because it includes a variety of genres: classical, jazz, Latin jazz, traditional. So it has maintained that level of variety because we are interested in that, and of course, because our audiences have responded very favorably to all types of genres. One of the things that we have also done is that we do the Bronx Free Piano Sundays. And that is a great moment to showcase our Steinway Model B grand piano. And that is one of our cherished jewels. It's like my daughter. I really am very proud of the Steinway, and I recall that the idea was proposed to me by a musician during a rehearsal here for the Marches Music Series. Before the Steinway, we would rent because some musicians required a grand piano. But then Conrad Adderley told me one afternoon, you know, Pregones needs a Steinway. You have to get a Steinway. So we leapt upon that idea and we started conversations with our elected officials and with the appropriate agencies, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. And finally, we were approved the purchase of a Steinway. And mind you, this is a big deal. First of all, Steinways are the crown jewel of pianos. They are handmade. Each instrument takes a year to build, and it is an exquisite instrument. And I'm very happy that our artists can play it and that our audiences can enjoy it. And during our Marches Music Series, we launch the Bronx Free Piano Sundays, and that is a concert every Sunday afternoon during the month of March where the piano is highlighted. It has mostly been classical music or new music. Steinway pianos, they are very precise instruments, and it has over 2,000 parts. So it is a very delicate and complex musical instrument. The instruments are made so that they fit the acoustics of the room. Before we selected the piano, we had some folks from Steinway here, and they listened to the room. So they got a sense of the acoustics of the room. The day that we were slated to go to the Steinway factory here in Queens, it was a beautiful experience. That day, on the billboard at the entrance of the factory, the name Pregones Theater was posted there because we were there that day to do the selection. So we went into this big room that had probably 10, 14 pianos, all grand pianos. And the room was tuned in a way. It had panels, it had very specific humidity and temperature control. So it assimilated the sound of this room. And our artistic director and our musical director and myself, we spent a whole morning over at the Steinway factory going over different pianos, and it was a beautiful experience. I remember one afternoon I saw an audience member who frequents our theater, and it was a beautiful day out, and I asked her, "Hi, how are you? How have you been?" And she says, "Oh, great." And it's such a beautiful day that I said, I want to go to Pregones and listen to some classical music. And that was like beautiful. Two other people that are very critical in this series are Jessica Moya, who is actually our production manager right now, and Milton Ruiz, who is a musician and also our sound engineer. They have been working in Marches Music for over 10 years now, and they are essential. Jessica, because she can get the feeling of the music in a way that will translate to a stage lighting vocabulary that is adequate and that enhances the music that is being performed. Milton, on the other hand, is the one responsible mainly for, when necessary, the audience getting to hear precisely what the musician intends to hear. You know, we present very different musical numbers, so each requires specific sound enhancement, or some don't even require sound enhancement. I remember we presented a Brazil guitar duo, and when I am in conversations with them, I ask them, what is it that you need in terms of sound equipment and backline and so on and so forth? And they tell me, well, if it's a house that is no larger than 700 seats, we don't use any amplification whatsoever. And I said, wow. So here we are. We have a 126-seat house. Brazil guitar duo just came up with their 2 guitars and blasted away.
This is a message from Carlos. He says, I support Pregones PRTT because Boricua artistic expression was born of the racial, cultural, and linguistic roots which formed us. Hacer arte es hacer patria. Help the young to know themselves. I mean, this is exactly one of the reasons why I love PRTT and Pregones, is because this was the first place I worked when I moved to New York City as a young artist. It's one of the only places in New York where I can explore my artistic side and my culture, and it's a place where both of those things can come together.
I really do feel that the level of integrity in the work, also in the sense of community with front of house and just everybody involved in the Pregones family, makes people feel happy and makes people leave the theater feeling lifted.
It speaks to our current moment here in the world where people need to escape, and I love that this theater provides inspiration and a reminder of our beautiful culture. I feel that it is a place, a sanctuary for artists, Puerto Rican artists, to develop their craft, develop themselves as people, and it provides that for not only Puerto Ricans here in New York City and abroad, but also it provides that for other Latino artists and also artists from the LGBTQ+ community.
We are so proud to be recognized as one of the leading Latinx theater ensembles in the nation. And we're home to more than 20 artists ranging from choreographers, actors, designers, playwrights, who continue to share their stories and their talent on our stages, both in the Bronx and in Manhattan. The support of our donors not only helps to keep the legacy that Miriam Colón set forth here at Pregones Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, but also impacts artists, for instance, in Puerto Rico, where we have been able to institute grants, emergency grants, to artists that were affected by Hurricane Maria, and now most recently by artists who were also affected by the earthquakes in Puerto Rico. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being part of our family.
Pregones is very warm and pleasing. It has a level of intimacy. We are not too far away from the audience, but we do have a wide enough stage for the bands to fit comfortably. The acoustics of this room are so welcoming that we have had musicians like Papo Vasquez, Juan Gutierrez from Los Pleneros, and we also had some musicians that came here and recorded live. When we presented Papo Vasquez and the Troubadours, the Mighty Pirate Troubadours. It was an amazing evening. And we maintained that working relationship with Papo throughout the years to the extent that we recorded some of his concerts. We were able to, present them on the platform. And Papo was able to record a concert that he did here. I respect him very much. He is extremely disciplined and very, very talented and a very conscientious arranger and composer. And Los Pleneros de la 21, they are like family to us. We worked with Los Pleneros way back when we were at St. Anne's Church, and we have continued a working relationship with them here, and we have presented them. Another great experience that we had due to the acoustics of the room was a recording by the Marquez O'Farrell Stimson Trio here at Pregones Theater. They had been in the theater before, and they just were blown away by the acoustics, and they decided to come back and do a live recording. And I must mention that many, if not all, of the concerts of March's music have been recorded by Milton using top-of-the-line equipment. During the concerts, I'm very nervous, so I'm usually all the way in the back of the house. I just sit there, or I stand there. I'm standing by Milton, and I can do my gestures and without interrupting any audience member. I think any seat in the house is good because you're going to get good sound and you're going to have a very good sight line. Very few houses have that, particularly big theaters, with the exception, of course, of Carnegie Hall. But particularly big theaters, you will experience a sound differently in different locations throughout the house. Here, any seat is great. That's another thing that I'm interested in March's music, providing our audiences, again, aiming at the widest possible musical experience. And we have presented contemporary classical music or new music here with great pleasure for me and for many of the audience members, and of course for the musicians. Many years ago, we started a partnership with Carnegie Hall in what was their neighborhood concert series. And through Carnegie, we were able to present groups like the Jack Quartet, Line C3 Percussion, So Percussion, just to mention a few. And those were memorable concerts. Another memorable concert for me was when we presented Alfonso Fuentes, who's a renowned Puerto Rican pianist and composer of contemporary music. And we had a blast with Alfonso. I had met him in Puerto Rico and had a conversation with him about him performing here. The performance didn't occur until many years later, but it was just exquisite. And people were kind of surprised to see a grand piano and an aluminum 8-foot ladder and wondering what's going to happen here. And of course, Alfonso, in his ingenuity, for one number, climbed up on the ladder and started darting ping pong balls at the Steinway, at the soundboard. And it was just amazing. It really was. One of the genres that we present during the Marches Music series is Latin jazz. And we have had a variety of groups here. We have had big bands, trios, quartets. We presented here to great acclaim. And I was very proud of having him here, Arturo O'Farrill. Arturo is a Grammy nominee, Grammy awardee. So he's a terrific piano player, composer, and arrangement. And when we presented him here, we had a full house, standing room only, even though we don't allow standing room. And it was just standing ovation after standing ovation because of the great quality and the enthusiasm that Arturo created in the room. We started with a first series of concerts in 2007. It was traditional Puerto Rican music. It was also traditional Cuban music. And it was a challenge because, well, we were just getting our hands into it. I was just getting my hands into it. And I really didn't foresee the complexities. And for that first series, we scheduled evening concerts with different groups. So we had to change over. And that became a task. And we had to move very, very quickly. For example, one band may require a specific floor plan. And floor plan is the arrangement on the stage of where each musical instrument goes, where each microphone goes, where the musicians will be stationed. So one group would require one setup and the other group would require a different setup. So we had to do some juggling around. And finally, we figured out a way of providing a setup that was good for all of them. Big bands were and are and will always be a challenge because we have 20 musicians, we have string sections, we have horns, we have vocals, we have percussion. So it's a complex arrangement, and we have presented several big bands, and it has been great, and we have been able to do it very, very well to the satisfaction of the musicians and to the satisfaction of our audiences, which is my main concern, that both artists and audiences are satisfied with being together in a room and just enjoying the evening or enjoying the afternoon. I remember a very big setup for the series with, I think it was soul percussion. And we had like a 12-foot table downstage filled with all sorts of electronic homemade instruments or fabricated instruments that they utilized during the concert, and that was a challenge to set up. We had the time to do it, but we were able to do it, and it was great. And another concert that we had, again, with new music, they used the TV monitor, and then they had the soundtrack playing from Pac-Man. Well, they had one of those rolling while the musical number was being executed. And I thought that was wild, and it was great. March's Music series here at Pregones has become one of our major programs, and we are very proud of it. We have accomplished a lot with it. For example, musicians will call me or will reach out to me because they have heard of the series. They know of musicians that have played in the series and want to participate. I see a long future for March's Music and its growth, its scope, its depth, and its engagement with our audiences for as long as we can. The March's Music series of 2021 is going to be quite different from others, and it's due to the circumstances that the world is living now, and we here in New York are also living the consequences of the COVID-19 infection, and we have had to take very, very specific precautions to maintain the health and safety of our audiences and of our artists. And in that sense, we have had to record the concerts of this series before airing them on the night that we have them scheduled. The concerts will be, like always, Saturday nights at 8 o'clock and Sunday afternoons. All the artists have been recorded previously, and the recording has been edited when needed so that our audiences and our artists are satisfied with the product, and we hope you enjoy it.